Hello everyone, this is Jason for Primetime Aquatics, and in this video we've got some exciting news for you, kind of a fish room update. Now, if you've been following the channel, in the last video we set up a 125 for some Geophagus pellegrinae and some white skirt tetras that were in one of the 75s on this side of the fish room. Those fish were getting too large for that 75, so they've got a new 125. I will put that video in the upper right hand corner as well as in the description below if you want to check that out. I think the tank came out really nice. And we're going to show you that in a few minutes just to kind of give you an update. The other thing that we have going on is we have a second 125. Now that second 125 was set aside for some Geophagus Brasiliensis that are in a 33 long right behind me. Geophagus Brasiliensis get quite large and we've got 9 of them. A 33 long is not anywhere close to an appropriate size tank. We knew going into it that we would have to get a larger home for them, and I think we've solved that issue. So how did we solve that issue? As some of you are aware, we have a couple other 125s set up on the other side of the fish room. One of those 125s was set aside for 5 red gold severums and 9 Geophagus Milleri. Shortly after setting up that tank, we had an internal parasite breakout. We lost all the Geophagus Milleri, which was absolutely heartbreaking, and all but 2 of the red gold severums. That's a large tank to have for 2 fish. But I think what we were able to do is solve a lot of problems in our fish room in terms of getting fish in the right size aquariums. So stay tuned. So the first thing we did is we have a free 40-gallon breeder for when Roger and Ruby moved out of the 40-gallon and into the 75-gallon. What we did is we took the red gold severums, the 2 that were in the 125, and put them in the 40-gallon breeder. Now you can see them here, they're doing great, but one thing that happened that's very interesting about this tank, after Roger and Ruby, the 2 red devils, got out of that tank, it was pretty much a mess. And what's interesting is within just a couple of days, that tank has cleared up and cleaned up quite a bit. One, because we have a couple bristlenose in there, and I think they're a little bit more confident in being able to do their job now that those big red devil cichlids are no longer there. And I also think that the red gold severums might be picking on some of the algae that was in that tank, and they've all collectively cleaned it up a little bit. And these 2 red gold severums are going to be in this tank for the near future. So how did we solve our Geophagus Brasiliensis problem, you ask? Well, the 125 that originally had the red gold severums is now a lightly planted tank. So we added some Java fern, we added some Anubias over here. We still got a little bit of blackbeard algae, but I think that kind of adds character to the tank. The layout's pretty much the same, but you can see the Geophagus Brasiliensis are all happy in their new home, a much larger home. They went from a 33 long to this 125, and I think this is going to work out well for them. A couple things we're still going to have to do. We may still have to thin out this herd at some point in the future. That's kind of expected and something we may do. We also want to add some other types of fish in here, so maybe possibly some tetras or some cory cats. But these fish have seemed much happier in their much larger tank, and so that kind of solves that problem. You can see here just how pretty these fish are. They are really showing off their spangling and their spots. They have a lot more room to roam, and we can see here just how big some of these larger males are, somewhere in that 5-inch range or so, 4.5, 5 inches. And again, as we start to see the group dynamics here, as they start to grow larger, and these fish can grow quite a bit larger, somewhere in that 10-inch range is what I would expect for these fish in this size tank. But it really should be a great display. It's a disappointment that we don't have the Geophagus Milleri in this tank with the red gold severums, but I think this tank is going to look nice. As again, we have to have patience with all the Geophagus type of fish, but this is one that really shows a lot of color from a very young age, as we can see here. We do have one bristlenose pleco in here, kind of keeping the algae in check. And like I said, we are going to add more fish, whether that's cory cats and or some tetras, just to get a little bit more of a South/Central American theme going on in here. So I'm happy that we got the Geophagus Brasiliensis in a tank that's more appropriate for the size that they will eventually reach. But what that means is we now have that second 125 freed up to do other things. In a future video, I'm going to show you just what we do with that tank, but I'm super excited about it. This is where it's at right now. We're just starting to look at it. Probably within a week or so, we should have this thing up and running and ready to go. Also really interesting, I mentioned in the video when we set up the other 125, how Roger and Ruby, our 2 red devils, were moving into the 75-gallon, vacated by the Geophagus pellegrinae, and that at the time, the tank looked pretty decent. but I had a feeling they were going to mess it up a little bit. Check this out. Look what they did to this tank. The gravel is all over the place. They moved the plants around. They're digging everything up, just as I expected them to do. So I guess the moral of the story is that if you're going to get large Central or South American cichlids, or even African cichlids for that matter, expect them to tear up the tank a little bit, and they're making it their own. Also really interesting, and I mentioned this before when we set up the 125, we didn't soak the driftwood. And I expected that we were going to get a little bit of a black water feel to our tank. Now it's not a real deep black water tank, but check out the water here. It's a little bit brown, it's a little bit darker because of the tannins that are coming off of those pieces of driftwood. I like the look of the tank. The pelagrini right now are kind of hiding behind the log over there. But the tetras are out, and again, we've got some more fish in quarantine going into that tank in the not too distant future. But so far, I'm really enjoying that tank. So as we go through this summer, there's going to be a lot of fish moving around. We now have a 33 long that's open where the Geophagus came from. The 40-gallon breeder where the Severums are currently located, that needs to be updated. And we've got about 3 or 4 other tanks that are going to get updated this summer as we continue to look at our fish room and reassess what our tanks are actually looking like and what they're doing. If you enjoyed this video and want to see that content coming up pretty soon, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.